Imagine this. You step outside before the world wakes. The sky is a soft gray, the air cool enough that your breath shows you your own aliveness. In the wet grass, your shoes darken, and the earth rises with a scent of rain, even if it hasn't rained yet. You kneel at the edge of a small patch of green you've passed 1,000 times and only now truly see. Sweetgrass. 3 long, shining strands. When you touch them, they feel like a memory your body always knew. You braid them into one, and as your fingers move, something in you steadies. Not because the world has become less complicated, but because the motion reminds you of a truth you have been trying to live. You are not alone here. You are in a world of generous neighbors. The birds who stitch morning together, the trees that hold our breath in their leaves, the soil, a quiet parliament of roots, threads, and minerals cooperating like old friends. You take nothing without noticing it, without feeling how much has already been given to you long before you arrived. And in that early light, you realize the day is offering you a question. If the world meets you with a gift, how will you answer? That is where we begin today, with a book that gently changes your eyes, your pace, your habits, and your language. Braiding Sweetgrass, written by Robin Wall Kimmerer, is a love letter, a field guide, and a set of instructions for remembering how to belong. Kimmerer is a botanist and a member of the citizen Potawatomi Nation, and she braids 3 strands together: the empirical clarity of science, the generational wisdom of Indigenous teachings, and the personal stories that make knowledge feel like home. This is not just a book you read, it's a set of relationships you join. It invites you to step into a world where strawberries are not commodities, but gifts, where harvesting can increase abundance when done with respect, where grammar itself can honor the living world, and where gratitude is not an emotion, but a practice that organizes your life. By the end of our time together, you will have concrete ways to bring these ideas into your day. How to harvest honorably, how to learn the names of your neighbors even if they have leaves, how to create small ceremonies that shift your attention from ownership to relationship, and how to design your work like a garden where every element supports the others. You will also meet the parts of you that resist busyness, cynicism, habits shaped by scarcity, and learn how to gently retrain them. The promise is simple and profound, a different way of walking through your life so that without becoming louder or more forceful, you become more connected, more responsible, and somehow more at peace. Let's begin with the first braid, the world as a gift. Imagine your favorite fruit, the one that tastes like summer when you bite into it. For Kimmerer, wild strawberries are the teacher. Nobody planted them in neat rows, nobody builds you for their sweetness. They come when they are ready, and they disappear when their season has passed. Their generosity is not transactional, it is an invitation into relationship. Why does this matter? Because the way we name a thing determines the way we treat it. If strawberries are a product, you reach for your wallet. If strawberries are a gift, you reach for your gratitude and your responsibility. That shift might sound soft, but it reorders everything. The gift economy of the earth says that gifts must move. You receive, you use, you share, you reciprocate. In practice, that could look like planting a patch of native flowers because you've enjoyed the shade of trees you did not plant. It could look like writing a thank you note not just to a person, but to a place. The creek that kept you company during your hardest days. The hill where you learned to breathe again. The barrier, of course, is the market logic that saturates our lives. We've learned to see value primarily through price, and we often hurry past what can't be bought. If that mindset is in you, and for most of us it is, try this small step. Before you eat today, name out loud who made your food possible: the seed, the soil, the pollinators, the rain, the hands that picked and carried and cooked. Then ask yourself, how will I move this gift forward? Maybe you share your meal. Maybe you compost. Maybe you support local growers. Let the question follow you like a friendly shadow. What is the gift here, and where does it need to go next? Now, if the world meets us with a gift, how do we take only what we can honor? That's the teaching of the honorable harvest, a set of simple, stern, and beautiful practices you can use whether you are foraging mushrooms or buying sneakers. Ask permission before you take. Take only what you need. Take only what is offered. Never take the first, never take the last. Use everything you take. Be grateful, share, and reciprocate the gift. When I first tried to apply this outside of a forest, I was in a grocery store with a shopping list shaped by stress. I walked the aisles like a miner looking for ore, not a guest arriving at a feast. I paused. I asked permission in my own quiet way. Do I really need all of this? Could I choose items that support people in places I actually want to support? Could I leave the last box on the shelf for someone who might need it more tonight? The barrier is convenience and the story we tell ourselves that we're too busy for ceremony. But ceremony is just attention with intention. You can turn down the speed of your cart and listen. You can choose the apple that reminds you of a tree, not just a barcode. You can promise to use what you bring home so less of your life turns into waste. If you're unsure where to begin, pick one category, coffee, eggs, or greens, and practice honorable harvest for a month. Notice what changes in your feelings and your footprint. Ask yourself, who did I ask? What did I take? What did I leave? And how will I repay? To live this way, you need language that keeps the world alive in your mouth. Kimmerer speaks about the grammar of animacy, how a language can make you a better neighbor. In English, we call the maple tree it, the bee it, the water it. They become objects by grammar, even when they are alive and acting. She invites us to experiment with words that restore relationship, to consider referring to the beings around us as kin instead of things, to let vary the shape of our sentences carry respect. The barrier here is habit and the worry that changing a word is trivial. But think about how a name changes a friendship. When you learn the name of a person you pass daily, your eyes greet them differently. When you learn the names of the plants that line your sidewalk, the sycamore, the plantain, the jasmine, you start to notice their moods and their seasons. A practical way to begin is to learn one new plant or bird name each week, not as a trophy, but as a handshake. Use that name regularly. Notice how your body behaves differently when you say, "Good morning, cedar," rather than, "That tree looks nice." If you have children in your life, give them the gift of names. Go on a short walk and say to the green world, "We want to know who you are." Then ask yourself, what language do I use when I speak to the living world? If someone spoke to me that way, would I feel honored or used? A second braid in this book is gratitude as allegiance. Not gratitude as a vague feeling, but as a daily architecture that reorients your heart. Kimmerer describes traditional words of thanksgiving that honor the waters, the winds, the plants, the animals, the sun, the stars, the teachers, and the people. Imagine beginning your day this way, not as performance, but as calibration. You look up and remember that the world is already cooperating on your behalf. Gratitude becomes a guiding map for action. You defend what you praise. The barrier is cynicism, the suspicion that gratitude lacks teeth. But notice this, when you are genuinely grateful for water, you waste less of it, and you fight for its purity. When you are grateful for birds, you choose plants that feed them. Gratitude recruits your behavior. A simple practice is to write 5 lines each morning that start with thank you and end with a verb. Thank you, rain, for teaching me patience, so today I will wait before I speak. Thank you, oak, for standing your ground, so today I will set one clear boundary at work. Thank you, morning light, for your generosity, So today, I will share something I didn't plan to share. Ask yourself, if I were to give allegiance to gratitude, what would I do differently by lunch? Another teaching flows from an old story, Sky Woman Falling. She arrives through a hole in the sky, clutching handfuls of seeds, and is welcomed by the beings of the water and the animals who gather mud to make a place for her to land. Creation here is not a solo act. It is a group project of generosity. The story offers original instructions. Remember that you live by the gifts of others. Do your part to make the world hospitable to the next to arrive. The barrier is the myth of self-sufficiency. Many of us were trained to believe that needing help is shameful. But the world runs on reciprocity, not isolation. To practice this, try a personal version of Sky Woman's Landing. When you enter a space, your home, after work, a meeting, a classroom, pause at the threshold and ask, who welcomed me here before I even came? What seeds am I carrying that the place might need? Then do one small thing that makes the space more livable for whoever comes after. Refill the water, open the blinds for light, wipe the cable, leave clear instructions, offer a kind word. When you feel yourself falling into uncertainty, a new role, a change you didn't ask for, remember that being caught is part of the plan. Look for the turtles in your life, the steady people and places willing to lend their backs so you can start again. Ask yourself, who caught me today, and how will I help make land for someone else? Kimmerer carries us into the garden and shows us the three sisters: corn, beans, and squash. They don't compete, they cooperate. Corn rises and offers scaffolding. Beans climb and fix nitrogen in the soil, feeding everyone. Squash sprawls, shading the ground to keep moisture and discourage weeds. Together they flourish more than they would alone. We've been told so many stories that celebrate single heroes, but most of what grows well in life grows because of supportive combinations. If you're building a project, who is your corn? The structure, the timeline, the visible shape. Who is your bean? The nourishment, the unseen work that feeds the system. Who is your squash? The protectors who shade the efforts from distractions and needless friction. The barrier is pride, the sense that asking for help dilutes your credit. But the three sisters teach that sharing roles multiplies the harvest. Try this. Choose a meaningful endeavor and name its three companion roles. Assign names, human or otherwise. Make it explicit with your collaborators. If you are solo, design supports anyway. A calendar to stand tall, a study buddy to fix nitrogen by holding you accountable, a set of boundaries that shade away unnecessary commitments. Ask yourself, what is my garden missing? Height, nourishment, or protection? And what living relationship could supply it? There is a chapter that lingers like a bright field in the mind. Asters and goldenrod. Purple and gold bloom together, pleasing not only to our eyes, but to pollinators. Beauty is not an accident here. It is a form of communication, a cooperation between species. Kimmerer explores why we find that combination so striking, and in doing so, heals a false split between science and aesthetics. This matters because many of us unconsciously treat beauty as extra, an ornament we can afford only after real work is done. Yet beauty attracts care. When we beautify a place, we increase its chances of being protected. In your life, you can place goldenrod and aster next to each other by choosing pairings that invite attention. A clean desk with one beloved object, a spreadsheet that is not only accurate, but elegantly labeled, A meal plated with color so your family lingers 5 minutes longer. The barrier is the belief that beauty wastes time. Try this as an experiment. Add one intentional touch of beauty to the next task you would normally rush. A thoughtful font for your presentation. A sprig of green on the table. A few words of praise at the start of your email. Then observe. Do people treat this with more care? Do you? Ask yourself, where could beauty become a form of stewardship in my work this week? One of the book's most practical insights lives in the research on sweetgrass. Harvesting with care did not diminish the plant. In many cases, it encouraged growth. There is a way of taking that gives back. This teaching can free us from two unhelpful extremes: mindless consumption or guilty paralysis. If you love a place, engage with it in ways that make it stronger. Pick up litter not as penance, but as participation. Prune a tree at the right time so it grows more healthfully. Volunteer in restoration projects where your labor increases the abundance that everyone can share. The barrier is the fear of doing it wrong, or the sense that your effort is too small to matter. Start small anyway. Adopt a square of ground, one patch by your front steps, one section of a park, and make it your responsibility. Learn what grows there. Remove invasives if appropriate. Plant something native. Keep a simple log of your actions and what you observe. Over time, watch abundance return. Ask yourself, where can my careful taking become a form of giving? There is also a cautionary spirit in these pages. The story of the Wendigo, a being of insatiable hunger. You know the feeling. The scrolling that doesn't sate, the shopping that doesn't satisfy, the productivity that somehow leaves you hollow. The Wendigo inside each of us craves without reciprocity. Recognizing it is not about shaming yourself. It's about choosing a different appetite. You can practice small fasts that restore your balance. A day without buying. An evening without screens. A week of cooking what you already have before you bring more home. Name the craving and then feed a different hunger. For quiet, for learning, for connection, for attention. The barrier is the instant gratification loop. To interrupt it, tether your fast to a feast of a different kind. If you're not shopping tonight, take a lingering bath. Read poetry aloud. Call your grandmother. Watch the stars from your porch. Ask yourself, what does insatiability feel like in my body? And what form of enoughness could I practice instead? Kimura returns again and again to the power of names. When you know the name of a being, you notice when it goes missing. You also notice when it returns. Learning names is not a game for trivia nights. It is the start of caretaking. Begin with the beings you see daily. The sparrows, the weeds between the cracks, the trees that line your route to work. Use a simple app or a field guide once. Then repeat the name as if you are greeting an old friend. The barrier is overwhelm. There are so many names. Don't try to catalog the whole world. Choose one teacher a week and pay attention. Watch that plant through wind and rain. Notice who visits it. Say thank you when it flowers. Ask yourself, which 3 beings already know my face, even if I don't yet know their names? And how will I change that? Ceremony is a word that can scare away the modern mind. But in this book, ceremony is revealed as a practice of deep noticing. It is the way you arrive at the lake and pause before you enter. It is how you finish a project and leave an offering of your best attention. A quiet minute to honor the many hands and forces that made it possible. Ceremony gathers scattered pieces of your life and points them in the direction of gratitude and responsibility. What could this look like in your day? Before you turn on your computer, place your hand over the keyboard and ask to use your words responsibly. Before you eat, breathe once for the soil, once for the sun, once for the rain, and once for the people. After a difficult conversation, step outside and place your palm on bark, letting the tree take your heat and give you steadiness. The barrier is embarrassment and the speed at which we live. Keep it simple and honest. Ceremony is not about perfection. It's about return. Ask yourself, what small ceremony could help me cross the threshold into my best self each morning? The book also teaches that restoration is not just for landscapes. It's for relationships. If you've ever felt estranged from your family, your body, your purpose, you know the ache of absence. Restoration ecology asks a humble set of questions. What was here before? What disturbed it? What conditions would allow what is native to return? You can ask the same about a broken friendship or a frayed routine. What was the good that lived here? What events displaced it? What kinds of light, nourishment, and protection would allow it to grow again? The barrier is impatience. Restoration is slow, so set your expectations to seasons, not hours. Choose one relationship and begin with observation and small acts that add up. Regular check-ins, shared meals, a boundary that keeps the soil moist. Ask yourself, if I treated this relationship like a habitat, what would I add? What would I remove? And what patience would I practice? There is the matter of teaching and raising the next generation too. Kimura's stories of children and students show that love for the living world is taught by proximity and participation, not lectures. You don't convince a child to care about a lake by statistics. You invite them to skip stones and listen for frogs, and watch the way light makes a path on water. The barrier is screens and schedules that keep us indoors and distracted. So build rituals into your week that return you to the elements. A Friday night walk to greet the neighborhood trees, a monthly picnic in all weather, a practice of saving seeds and sharing them, naming each envelope with the laughter you want to grow next season. Ask yourself, what would it take for the young people in my life to say, this place loves me back? The book's gentlest ambition is to help us become indigenous to the place, not by claiming identity that isn't ours, but by learning responsibilities where we live. That means knowing how water moves through your city, what grows well in your soil, who else shares this land, and what they need to flourish. The barrier is rootlessness. Many of us move often and live in borrowed spaces. So adopt a radius, 1 mile, 5 blocks, and become an apprentice to it. Learn where the nearest wild patch is and visit it in every season. Learn who cared for this land before your arrival and what teachings they offer about reciprocity. Host potlucks where food and stories both travel. Ask yourself, if I were to promise one gift to my place this year, what would it be? And then there is work, the place many of us spend our most alert hours. What does it mean to braid sweetgrass at the office? It means weaving together precision, wisdom, and relationship. If you lead, lead like a gardener. Remove obstacles like weeds. Plant structures that hold growth. Nourish the soil of your team with appreciation and clear communication. Protect the perimeter from the pests of confusion and overload. The barrier is the old story that productivity is separate from care. But the most resilient systems are cooperative. Set a recurring moment each week where you name the gifts moving through their team. Ask permission before taking someone's time. Leave some for the others. Share what you can. Reciprocate before you're asked. Ask yourself, what harvest am I aiming for, and how will I leave the field richer than I found it? As these strands gather, you may notice a quiet shift in your interior weather. The more you practice gratitude, the more you notice generosity. The more you practice honorable harvest, the more you feel you belong. The more you call the world kin, the less you can dismiss it. On a practical level, you'll find that your habits move towards stewardship. You eat more seasonally, you waste less. You design your room to invite sunlight and your calendar to invite breath.
You catch yourself before the Wendigo takes over and you choose enough. None of this turns you into a saint. It turns you into a participant. And that is the heart of the book. We are invited to participate in a world that wants to keep living. Let me share a personal style reflection with you, the kind you might recognize in your own life. There was a year when I was carrying too much. My days felt like stacked chairs, precarious and creaking. One evening, I walked to the nearest patch of green and sat on the edge of a small pond that, until then, had been only a blur through my car window. Ducks worked the surface in easy arcs. The water held the last of the light like a secret. I realized no invoice would ever arrive for this consolation. It was a gift. I went home and began a practice that I keep to this day. On a scrap of paper, I write the name of a place that cared for me that week. A park bench, a stretch of sidewalk with a stubborn dandelion, a strip of sky between buildings, and beneath it, one way I will reciprocate. Sometimes it's a bag of trash collected on the next walk. Sometimes it's planting a pollinator-friendly flower. Sometimes it's a donation to the people restoring a wetland I will never see. The practice has a surprising effect. It makes me braver and more tender at once. I make different choices because I feel connected. I spend differently. I speak differently. I notice who needs shade and who can offer scaffolding. If you're ready, I want to challenge you to join me. Choose one place that has held you. Give it a name in your own words. Then choose one act today that moves the gift forward. Learn the name of one plant there. Leave a small offering of time or care. Rearrange your home so the light can reach the table where your family gathers. Craft a 5-line Thanksgiving you can say before you eat. Do not wait for the perfect season. The braid begins with one strand in your hand. As we close, remember what the sweetgrass teaches. Its fragrance rises when it is cared for, when it is touched with attention, when it is braided with others. Your life is like that. You do not have to do everything. You have to weave what you have with what is already here. Your science and your stories, your gratitude and your grief, your hands and the soil beneath them. Let the gift economy of the earth rewrite the way you measure value. Let the honorable harvest guide the way you take and give. Let your language honor the aliveness around you. Let beauty be a way of caring. Let restoration be your method when things break, because they will, and because they can be made whole again. When you forget, and you will, come back to the simplest practice. Step outside. Look for what is giving itself to you right now. Say thank you out loud. Then ask, how will I reciprocate? Carry that question with you like a compass. If the day feels heavy, remember Sky Woman's hands full of seeds. If you feel alone, remember the 3 sisters leaning into one another's strengths. If you feel greedy, remember the Wendigo and choose enough. If you feel small, remember that sweetgrass grows stronger when we harvest with care. The last line I will leave you with is this. Make your life a braid of gratitude, knowledge, and reciprocity, and you will find yourself not at the center of the world, but at home in it.